So welcome everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. We are talking about productivity today. My name is Katie Haywood. I am one of the digital learning coordinators in the Western area.
And I am Mary Clay Vick. I'm one of the digital learning coordinators from the Southwestern area.
So I think, go ahead.
So after today, we're going to hopefully all understand better about how to explain and implement the Getting Things Done system and choosing appropriate tools to implement this system and help us to be more productive with the few moments that we have in our day. And here's the access to the feedback form. We found that some people prefer to have the feedback form available and open during the presentation. So if something is something that they want to make a comment about during the process, they can go ahead and put that into the feedback form. So here it is available for you. We will share it again at the end of the presentation as well. So your feedback is important to us. And hopefully this is a very familiar site for you, the North Carolina Digital Competencies for Administrators. And today's session, specifically this module, will be working on specifically personal growth and connectedness. So when you think about your productivity, which one of these images resonates the most with you? When you got a decision and you think you know which one resonates with you the most, just put it in the chat and let us know.
Would either of you be willing to share why you picked 3 or 4? No pressure.
I can share. I picked 3 just because I feel like right now with especially this environment, sometimes my children are in my office too, so their stuff's everywhere, my stuff's everywhere, and it's just kind of a balancing act. And by the end of the day, the papers are usually cleared, but during the day, it's not quite that bad, but there's still papers.
Yeah.
We can certainly understand that. Welcome. I think we have another person that joined us, Jamie, maybe. Hello, Jamie. It's nice to see you. Here's the presentation link is in the chat for you. And we're just talking about which one of these images resonates with us most when we think about our productivity. So if you would like to think about it real quickly and just put it in the chat, which picture resonates with you the most.
Yeah, I picked 4 because, I try my best to be organized, but it's organizing those rocks in the middle of the water and the waves come and everything. And it's just, eventually it can get shattered.
Yeah, a very precarious situation, perhaps.
Oh, Jamie is also with a 4.
Yep. Yeah, I always like doing this activity just because there's so many different responses. When I see number 4, sometimes I think about like, oh, I'm very zen with my organization, but yet completely different interpretation. When I see number 1, I think about like, I'm this steam engine. I am full speed ahead. I am on a track. I am just a well-oiled machine, But then I had somebody in when I did this session before, they said, I feel like I'm just steaming ahead in one direction and I have no time to go anywhere else or look at anything else. And so I really like, all the different possible interpretations. And so there's just a variety of ways to think about this. And so what we're going to do is no matter where you are coming from with productivity and organization, we are going to have some strategies and tools to help you today. And we are going to center that around the Getting Things Done system. So this is a system created by David Allen. He is a CEO consultant. He works with big wigs and all kinds of Fortune 500 people. But I picked up his book one day and read through that, and it absolutely has just changed my life in terms of the way I think about productivity and the way I organize myself and my to-do list. Sometimes when we think of organization, we think, okay, well, if I can get my to-do list, and then we've got this huge mishmash of tasks and things. And so what I really like about this, I call it a system, but I'm going to explain why I don't like that word here in a minute. I really like the idea, and I'm going to read this, a little bit of this quote to you, which normally I don't like to read from the screen, but I just really want to emphasize, I really like this system because it improves our ability to deal proactively and constructively with the mundane realities while still feeling connected to our more meaningful priorities. And I think when we think about organization and productivity, a lot of times we just think about, how can I organize to get my stuff done? I just need to get stuff done, right? But what I really like about this system is it builds in that idea of, yeah, I've got all these like minutia tasks I have to take care of, but I still want to keep my goals and my vision in mind. And so with this, you're able to do that. This is also a quote from another blog article about getting things done in general. And this quote relates to why I don't like the word system, because a lot of times when people think, oh, I need a productivity system or an organization system, they think, okay, if I follow these set of rules and I do this in this order, then it'll all work. And getting things done doesn't necessarily give you do this in this order and put these rules down, and if you always follow these steps, but it's this more of this framework, this mindset. And it really just helps you organize your to-do list so that you can see what needs to get done, and then focus on what needs to get done at that moment. So the getting things done system overall focuses on these, what they call these 5 pillars: capture, clarify, organize, reflect, and engage. And the key to these pillars, and we're going to go through what each of these mean. The key to these pillars is that you really want to stay in one of them at one time. You're not going to be jumping and hopping back and forth between them until you're ready to move to that next stage. And just as similar to the EY's model, where it's kind of that circular, the kids can kind of go back, they'll be in one section and then they'll go to another, but then maybe they'll cycle back. Very similar to this. You might go through and capture and clarify and organize, but then you might go back and do some capturing and then go back to organize, reflect, etc. So it's not always linear, but you definitely want to focus in on one zone at a time. So what do each of these zones mean? This is kind of a flow chart, and we're going to kind of break this down. But this kind of just helps you think about how to process through these steps. So the first zone is you capture. And in this phase, you are going to capture everything that needs your attention. So a task you need to complete, papers you need to deal with, anything that you need to take care of in some way, you're going to capture it. And either by gathering it all like in a pile, if it is papers, or if it is tasks you need to complete, you're going to write all of them down in no particular order, just as you think of them. And this is where you start thinking about not jumping between zones, because you don't want to be like, all right, I'm writing down all the things I need to do. Oh, I need to do that. Oh, I'm going to go do that over here. Like, you're wanting to stay focused. Now, this is going to take a while. David Allen, when he talks about working with CEOs, he says this sometimes for them takes them 2 to 3 days just to capture everything. It might not take that long for you, but it's definitely, going to take probably a couple hours where you just go through your email and your papers and your tasks and your projects and your to-do list or whatever to just capture everything you need to get done that's in your mind. And the reason we do this is because our mind does not like incomplete loops. If we are trying to retain things in our head, that's using processing power that we will not be able to use when we actually go to do our work. So if we can get it all out of our brain, if our brain knows, okay, everything it's trying to remember is captured in a trusted place, it can say, all right, I can let go of that. And now I can dedicate my full processing power to whatever task I'm working on. So that's why we just want to get it all out of our head. We just want to brain dump, collect everything, and make it into one giant list or pile. Once we've done that, we're going to move into our clarify zone. And we're going to take each task one by one and think about, what is it that this means? So if I wrote in my capture list, you know, behavior plan, well, what is that? What is the first task or item that you need to do to go with behavior plan? I need to ask teachers to be on a team. That's the first thing I need to do. Okay, so you're going to add that to your task list next to behavior plan. So you just clarify what each of those things in that list means. What is it, and is it actionable? If it's not actionable, if it's a document you want to refer to later, if it's something you can trash, if it's something that you just want to hold on to think about at another time, you can file those away because you want to narrow it down now to these actionable items. And once you've done that, now you're going to actually start to organize those tasks into your different, what he calls buckets. So like I said, if I wrote down behavior plan and my next task is ask teachers to be on a team, that's the next action. If it takes less than 2 minutes, I'm going to do it right then. The research shows that the threshold of productivity is 2 minutes. If I can do it in 2 minutes or less, I need to just do it and get it out of the way. If it's any more than 2 minutes, I need to defer it until I actually start doing the work because it'll interrupt my productivity. So let's see, if I need to ask teachers to be on a team, well, that's just a quick email I can send. I'm just going to do that right now, real quick. Email, send, done. Okay. But if it's something that's going to take me a little bit more time, like, no, I really need to draft this email because I've got to pull in all the documents we're going to be using, you know, whatever, then I'm going to defer that for just a little bit until I'm done organizing. If it's something that I need to delegate, I'm going to push that to somebody else. You know, if it's something somebody else needs to do, then I'm going to put that on that list for them. And then defer it means I'm not going to do it right this minute, but I'm going to do it the next time I have a chunk of time to do work, or it's going to go on my calendar because it has to be done at a very specific time and date. Once I've kind of organized and sorted all of my tasks, I'm going to reflect and I'm going to look at the big picture. What are my projects that I'm looking at? I'm going to ask myself, in the big picture of my work, what needs to be done now? What do I need to put my priorities on? What has to get done because of deadlines? And I'm going to kind of look at everything as a whole, because that's where I start to see those big picture priorities. You know, maybe developing this behavior plan is a really important priority, but I've got these 3 tasks that have to be done by this afternoon. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to get those done. And then I'm going to focus on my big picture project. Right. And finally, we actually start the work, which I know seems counterintuitive because I'm like, wait, what? I've got to do all that before I even start doing my work? Yeah, because if you don't have a clear picture of your work and your tasks and what you need to get done, you're never going to be able to get caught up and not have that feeling of, oh, I've got so much to do, I don't even know where to start. Now, does this take time up front? Absolutely. And that's the key. Does it also take time if you get a little off track? Yep, it does. Like for me right now, I'm a little off track with my system. So I'm going to have to take some time here to kind of get caught back up and get back into my things and get all of my tasks and questions or tasks and items captured again, which is where I said, this is cyclical. I have to go back and do some more capturing now and clarifying and organizing to get back to where I want to be in terms of my work. So it's not a one and done process. You're definitely going to cycle through some of these. But when you've got this mindset going, when you kind of just use this flow chart, it really does help you focus on what you need to get done. Okay. So we have dipped our toe in the waters of getting things done. I highly encourage you, if you are really wanting to get into this and really wanting to kind of get this, you know, in place and really get this structure going, to check out the book. It's an amazing book. Like I said, it just has absolutely revolutionized how I think about my tasks and my productivity. But I wanted to pause here for just a second to give you all a chance to ask any questions, to process if there's anything you wanted to share about your thoughts so far, and just to kind of give you a minute to digest everything you've heard so far. And feel free to either unmute if you want to ask a question. We're a small enough group, or if you'd like to put in the chat a question or a thought. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that.
So in the organized phase, are those the buckets that the system expects us to use? What is the next action? Do it, delegate it, or defer it?
Yes, with an asterisk. What the beauty of this system is you can customize it to make it work for you. So I'm going to show you here in a minute the actual tool and structure I use to capture everything and how I have modified my buckets to work for me. So yes, you want to be thinking about it in do it now because it's 2 minutes or less, delegate it to somebody else, or defer it and set blocks of time in my calendar to work on different things. But I kind of call those a little bit different things, if that makes sense. So I'm going to show you that here in just a few minutes.
And
Thank you for that
Katie?
question. Yeah.
And Katie, how things that are repeating things that need to be on your to-do list, how are those addressed in your flow chart as well?
So it kind of depends. If it's something that's repeating and it's at a particular time and date, like, you know, a bus duty or a phone call or something or whatever, I would put that on my calendar. Your calendar should be a sacred place in that the only things that go on there are things that happen at that particular time, because we get mentally discouraged when we put things on our calendar that we'd like to get accomplished and it doesn't happen. And so instead of putting tasks on your calendar, you're going to want to put maybe blocks of time to describe the type of work you want to do. And that's a whole nother session that I've done before called time blocking. But, you know, if it's something that has to happen, like, you know, Susie emailed me and said, hey, can you call me between 1 and 2 on Friday? I'm going to put that on my calendar because that has to happen between 1 and 2 on Friday. But if Susie says, hey, call me when you have a chance, I'm going to put that on my defer it when I can list. And I'm going to show you again how I kind of modify that to make sure it gets done. For things that are repetitive, that you just need to make sure you take care of, they don't necessarily have to happen at a specific time, that could easily be a customized, like you could customize and make a bucket for that for you. And we're going to get into the tool and you could have that bucket right in your tool, just to always have that visually, you know, in your face. Like, it sounds rude, but, you know, out of sight, out of mind. So the more things you can have kind of right there visible, the better. All right. Any other thoughts or questions before we move on? All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about a tool that I use to kind of harness all of these ideas. I use a tool called Trello. Now, this is just one of many productivity tools that are out there. It's just a case of this is the one I learned first, so this is the one I know best, and I'm just a really big fan of it. I think it's got a ton of features. It is one of those what we call freemium tools where there's a free level and a paid level, but I have not encountered anything that I want to do that I can't do with the free version. Excuse me. So it's just a really robust tool. If this tool doesn't work for you, like for instance, one of the other DLCs, Trello just does not work for her. She uses another one called, I think it's called ClickUp or something. And so some of you might already be using a tool. I think Todoist, if I'm remembering correctly, is another one. You might already have a tool that you're comfortable with. Everything we are going to talk about can be translated into these other tools. So I'm not saying lock into this one, but if you aren't using one, this might be a good one to start with. Also, some people are like, you know what? I need paper pencil. I am tried with the digital, but I am just a paper pencil person. You absolutely can translate this into paper pencil as well. So don't get too hung up on thinking, oh, I have to use this tool. Think about it more as this is kind of just a structure that I can translate into another tool if I need to. All right, so Trello is an organizational tool, and there's a few key terms that we're going to use to talk about how to set up our Trello. We have boards, lists, cards, labels, and covers. Okay. And yes, thank you, Mary Clay. Trello is approved for staff use only. So our students cannot use this tool, at least not with our sanction or our approval. All right. So this is what a Trello board looks like. So you'll see this whole thing, everything you see on your screen is called your board, kind of like a big giant bulletin board, right? Each of these columns is called a list, and they're fully customizable. Within each list, we add cards. And then on the cards, we can have labels and covers. On my particular board, you'll notice the labels and the covers are both color-coded because that works for me. Covers can also be images. So if there's a particular image you want to use instead of a color, you can do that as well. But I prefer the color, so that's why I just use that one. All right, so I'm going to walk you through the steps of how to set up your Trello. If you have a second monitor or if you want to try and do it at the same time, feel free to follow along. Otherwise, I'm going to walk you through the first couple of steps, and then I'll give you a few minutes to go do that, to go and then give you time to do that while we're here to answer questions.
Is it one of the apps that's in Wake Connect or?
It is not. No, this is a separate app. So you'll want to open up a new tab in your Google Chrome. And like I said, I'm going to walk you through the steps here first, and then I'll give you a few minutes to go back and do that if you'd like to do it after. All right. So the first step is you're going to go to Trello.com, and you're going to click Create a New Account, and that's going to bring up this window, and you're going to put in your email. Do not sign up with Google. We do not, even though it is an approved tool, or excuse me, an allowed tool in the Digital Resource Product Library, we do not have an agreement with them that will allow us to sign up with Google. So you will just use your email to sign up and click Create a New Account. It'll go through, some steps and procedures there. And then it'll take you to your dashboard, and you'll click the plus sign in the top right corner to create your first board. Once you've done that, you're going to give your board a title and decide whether you want it to be private or public. I keep mine private. Well, sort of. I add my partner, Wanda, my other DLC partner. I add her, but for the most part, I keep it private. And then I start to add my lists. I'm going to actually pause there to let you do that first, because then we're going to kind of talk about what might be some lists that you would want to include. So go ahead and take a minute.
Question.
Yes.
Is there any difference in whether we create it with our Wake County account or a personal account?
No, it's just what you choose to create with. I've created my work. So I actually have 2 Trello accounts. I have a work Trello account with all of my work boards. And then I have a personal Trello account that contains my personal stuff that I use with my personal email address. So totally up to you. You might want to use your personal in case you worry you might not keep your Wake County one for a long time. It's probably, I haven't even looked into it, whether you can change your email address login. So it's just total personal preference. When you create your board, it will add default lists for you. It will start with 3 default lists. I think they are to do, doing, and done. I quickly got rid of those because those are very nebulous, and I don't like giant to-do lists that are all mixed up with different tasks that don't really go together. All right, so while those of you are finishing setting up your account, what we're going to do is we're just going to look now at some possible lists that you might want to add to your board. So these are some of the lists that I have on my board. And while you're working here in a minute, I'll go back and log in. But these are basically the lists that I have. So it was really important to me to have a list with some of my goals and vision. And you can see I'm still working on my vision, but just some big picture ideas that I wanted to keep first and foremost, because remember that getting things done is about helping you to organize your tasks so that you can focus on those things that mean the most to you and that what are your highest priorities. And so I really wanted to keep that first and foremost as my first list. So I have a list with vision and goals. That is kind of outside of the getting things done system, but that was important to me to kind of keep my priorities there. I have a list called inbox. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. I have a list now. This is where I start to break up my buckets. So if you remember, your buckets were essentially, okay, let me go back real quick. If I do it now, delegate it, or defer it. So what I have done is do it now doesn't really need a list because you're just going to kind of take care of it. Delegate it, I have created a list for those tasks. And defer it, I have broken that bucket up into multiple smaller buckets. So for instance, jump back down here. I keep a list called email. And what I do is all the emails that I think about that I need to send, I'll create cards for that. Because once you kind of get in the groove of doing email, you want to just kind of stick with it, right? So if I'm capturing and I have a whole bunch of emails I need to send, I kind of created one individual bucket for that under the umbrella of, defer it tasks. I also create a list called time sensitive, because those are those things that don't necessarily have to happen at a certain date or time, but they do have to happen within the next, maybe week or so. And so I kind of put all of my tasks there that I know I absolutely need to get done. And I attach a due date with them. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. I also have lists that are more broad that cover some of the types of work that I do. So for instance, one category of work I do is I design. I design a lot of presentations. I design a lot of trainings, things like that. So I have made a bucket called design where I've got everything under there that has to do with trainings and creating presentations and things like that, or resources that I want to develop for people. So technically, emails I need to send, time-sensitive tasks where I need to design a training or a project, things I need to go in and learn about, tools I need to learn about, those would all be considered under that umbrella of defer it, because they're tasks I need to get done when I can start doing work. But I like breaking them up into separate lists on my Trello board. So you might have lists such as, trying to think of a good example, maintenance or transportation issues or things that you have to deal with. You might have a list of phone calls to make. You might, because once you get on the phone, it's just easier to just make all your phone calls, right? So you might have different lists for the different types of work that you do to help you categorize that so that you know where you're wanting to work. I also have a list for those things that I have delegated. So if I say, oh, this person needs to take care of that, I keep a list for that so that I remember to follow back up with them. I also have a list of my ideas, just things that maybe someday I want to try. David Allen calls that his tickler file, which I really don't like that name. So I call it just, my someday list. But, and then I also keep lists of things that have to happen with a specific person or during a specific time. So if there's tasks that you need to speak with your admin about, your principal, you might want to keep those all in one list so that next time you have a meeting with them, you can just look at that one list and you've got all the things you need to talk about right there. Or if things have to happen at a staff meeting, you can have one list with all the things you need to mention at the staff meeting, and it's all right there. It's not all jumbled up in your to-do list where you might forget about it and lose track of it. So I know that's kind of abstract a little bit, but really what I like, what it boils down to is taking that category, that bucket of defer it, to do the work when you have time, and breaking it up into those categories of tasks that you have to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to take about 5 minutes to give you some time to finish creating your board if you didn't have a chance to do that, and then start adding some lists. Feel free to, chat in the chat or unmute if you want to chat with each other. You guys are the experts at your job. So, you might ask each other, hey, I'm trying to think about how I would break this up. You can ask Mary Clay and I questions, but we'll take a few minutes to kind of just work and start to get our Trello board set up with our lists.
So Katie, how many different lists do you have in one board?
You can have, I don't know if there's a limit to how many you can have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 or so, maybe a dozen, including my done list. That I will say that is one list that I did keep from the original default, was the done list, because as we're going to see here in a minute, you can move your cards between lists, and it feels really good to move that card into the done list. I don't know if anybody else ever does this, but you add things to your to-do list just so you can cross them out to get that little mental boost. So when I get to move things into that done column, it feels really good. So I think I have about maybe 10 or so, 10 or 12.
Well, that done list would also be a good area for you to review to see what in that done list might need to go to your professional portfolio too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know for me, I've added and deleted lists. So, this isn't going to be your one and done right now. You're going to find that, oh, I need to modify this list, or I need to split this list up and create another one. So you're definitely going to go through some iterations where you're going to have these kind of different lists to help keep yourself organized in whatever way that works for you. It is kind of a work in progress, if you will. Yeah, and so Mary Clay shared in the chat some of the things, some of the people she specifically works with, so tasks that need to be done with those people, design, which is a big part of our jobs, so that's a large category of work that we do. Again, think about the types of work that you do and how you might want to kind of categorize that or organize it. I know typically discipline is a big part of what you guys do, of your responsibilities. You just want to be careful not to put any kind of private information. So if you need to say, oh, behavior or referral or write up for so-and-so, you're not going to want to use names and things like that, just because behavior is a confidential information. Yes. Is it Ms. Ratley? Yes. And I'm going to show you a really cool board that actually another AP gave me the idea for in a previous session. We're going to see that in just a minute. So, all right. So we're going to move ahead just because we still have some other things to cover. All right. So we've got our board, we've got our lists. Now we're going to start looking at our cards, and you might have already added some cards yourself. You might have kind of done that already. It's pretty intuitive, so that's fine. But once you've got your list, now you're going to start adding cards. And these are the things that your tasks or things that you need to do. And you might even just start putting all of your cards in one list. You might have a capture list, or like, for instance, my inbox list. So you can start putting all of these cards in. And like I said, you can move the cards. So if you click add a card under your list, you can enter a title, and I usually just make it the task, call John, whatever. And then you can click add card. It's as simple as that. But then where it starts to get really powerful is how much customization you can do to a card. So once I've added my card, if I click back on the card, it opens up this menu. Now I can start adding details to that task. I can add comments. So I have a card right now where it's kind of this back and forth task with somebody. Every time something happens or every time somebody emails back, I'll write a comment and say, so-and-so emailed me back with this information. And then I'll put, I emailed them asking this question. So you can add comments to track what happens with that card. You can add, this is where you add labels. Like I was talking about before, labels are colors. You can name the labels so that a certain color means a certain thing. You can add a checklist. So like if you've got, I need to fill out fire marshal reports for 4 rooms. You could add fire marshal report as the title, And then the 4 rooms could be on your checklist and you could check them off as you finish each room, right? And I just made that up. I don't know if that's something you actually have to do. You can set due dates on your tasks. I use that extensively. I use the description area extensively because the more you get out of your head, the more your brain will be able to process later. You can also add covers. And like I mentioned, covers can either be solid color or they can be an image. I like the color. Some people like that visual image. You can move a card. With here, I just like to drag them. You can copy it. There's templates, which I haven't played with, but those are really powerful. Power-ups are kind of like add-ons in Google where they can do additional functions and features. Some of them are paid, some of them are not. So there's just lots and lots of different customization that you can do with a card to get all of that information right there. Like I've said, cards are as easy as drag and drop. So you can grab a card, click and hold, and then just drag it into the column. You can drag it wherever within the column you want. So it's really easy to just move cards between lists. All right, we're gonna keep moving ahead just a little bit, just because we've only got about 7 minutes left and we got a few more things to cover. And we want to respect your time. So one thing that's really, really handy is that you can set up an email for your Trello board. And I've shown the steps here. In the top right corner of your board is a button called Show Menu. You'll click that, you'll click More, and then you'll click Email to Board Settings. And what that does is it generates an email address for your board. So now you can email your Trello list directly from your email. So I know, like, when I'm laying in bed at night and I think of something I need to do, it's just easier for me to send a quick email than to try and open my Trello app, find the board, whatever. And so what I've done is I've created a list that all of my emailed cards go to. So I can just send emails while I'm on the go and then come back later and categorize them where they need to go. So this is just really handy because it adds flexibility. It adds the ability to just jot your stuff down, even while you're on the go, even when you're waiting in line for coffee, whatever. You can just email your board directly. Whatever you put as the subject line of your email is what appears on the card, and whatever is in the body of the email goes in the description area of the card. So you can put all of your info, whatever you want, to have on your card straight from your email. So it's really handy. You get your self-generated email, and you can go from there. This is.
I think Mr. Pinckney had a question.
Yes, please.
Does it create a new card, or can you email it to an existing card?
It creates a new card.
Okay.
I have never explored if it emails to an existing card. I don't think it does. Yeah, I don't think that. There might be like maybe a power up or something that might do that, but I've never explored that in particular. So Ms. Ratley, this is the board that I was talking about earlier. So we had one principal or one AP say, this would be really handy to keep track of where my people are in the evaluation process. And so you can have lists for each step of the process and a card for each person and just kind of drag them through that process of where they are to help you keep track of, okay, Jennifer is doing her PDP initial right now. I need to schedule my pre-conference observation with Jane, et cetera, and just really keep track of that. Because you can have multiple boards. So you can have your to-do list board and then also this evaluation board. I do want to just give that caveat. It is okay, and we double checked on this, to put people's names in relation to the assessment process in Trello. But because Trello is not like a confidential, secure place, you're not going to want to add any evaluation documents or links with specific self-assessments, things like that. So you can keep like their names and such in it or tasks, but none of their actual evaluation individual data in there. So just something to keep in mind. Trello has an app, so you can install it on your phone, both for Android and Apple. So again, when you're going through the halls and you're on the go, you can have your Trello app right there. you know, just where you can be adding to it. And it works pretty seamlessly, pretty much like the desktop version, where you can move your cards around and create your cards and everything. And so it's pretty smooth there. All right. So we do only have a few minutes left. I'm not going to go through these productivity tips and tricks. These are just some additional little tips that you can go back through later. Almost all of them have links with either videos or whatever to explain or demonstrate how they work. Calendar, use your calendar events, Google Tools, Keep. So yeah, so these are just some tips and things for organization and productivity. I've linked some additional resources here at the end, some links for time blocking in Google Calendar, which is a whole other training and a whole other organization and productivity system that I absolutely love. And then I've also linked some resources about getting things done in general. As Mary Clay mentioned earlier, we do have a feedback form. Please, 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 if you have just 2 minutes to fill that out, that would be great. We do use that feedback. The DLCs are very serious about it and trying to become better. So we do look at that. We do use it to inform our practice. And again, here's our contact info. If you need to reach out to us, we are happy to help you at any time. You can also go to dlc.wcpss.net to find out who your DLCs are if we are not one of yours. Or you can reach out to us and we'd be happy to direct you to your DLC. The last bit that I want to show you all is we do have the opportunity for you to earn credit. So hopefully you made your way here through the Canvas course. Here are all of the session resources for this session, Module 4, Session 1. The presentation and the recording will be here to access later. The feedback form is linked here. And then here is the reflection form to earn that CEU credit. It should only take you about 10 minutes. So between the presentation and that reflection form, you'll earn your 0.1 CEUs if you would like to do that. Okay. So we have just another couple minutes. Please, if you've got any questions or comments, we would love to hear them and answer those. You are very welcome, Ms. Maury. You are welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We will hang out for just another couple minutes if you've got questions or anything else. Otherwise, have a great day. Check out the schedule for the rest of the sessions. And yeah, set aside some of that time to capture all your tasks.